Morning, Chris George, Director of Marketing at Beach Resort in Key West.
Hi, this is Loren, VP of Revenue with DRE's Hotels. Good morning, Christina Little with DRE.
Aloha, Dan Miller with Responsible Couple Duet.
Good morning, Sarah Harper, Head of Marketing from South Coronado and
Morning, Scott Spurlock with DRE Hotels and Resorts.
Hi, I'm Martin, Senior Marketing Manager for Hotel Coronado and Victoria Hotel.
I'm Rachel Choba with Brecommerce.
And Loren, Marketing Manager for Aquilina. Morning, I'm Christina Delvera. I handle marketing and communications for Hotel Disney in San Francisco.
Good morning, Jim Petrus, DRE Hawaii.
Aloha, John Conchi, Director of Marketing for Resort.
Ginger Oswald, Marketing Manager for Florida Resort.
Laura Curry, Marketing Communications for Resort.
Morning, this is Director of Digital for Boca.
Mark Dominic, Sales and Marketing.
I'm Ashley Tyler. I'm with the Courtyard Keith Kamehameha from the Beach Hotel.
I'm Kimberly Gang. I'm with Just Rich Marriott from the social media.
I'm Loren Gregg. I get to bother you for now.
The great thing about Loren is he's recording all of this, so if you're still not quite awake yet, you can see it later.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for your hospitality. I have the pleasure of being able to stay with you for the past day. It's been a wonderful experience, and thank you. For everyone else, the hardest part for me is starting in the morning because I have 1,000 things I want to say. I try to put that burden on you all by running around the room and asking what it is that you would like out of this conversation, because this deck for me is never done. It constantly changes. I've already warned most of you, for those I didn't get a chance to talk to. I have more slides than I have time today. I have more content than we can probably get into discussions, with the purposeful intent that I have been wonderfully warned that we have a brilliant group of people that have never really been truly brought together before, and the opportunity to be able to collaborate and dialogue about things that you don't often get the opportunity to. I do not want to stand in that way by thinking that I have to talk to you, but to talk with you in this process. That's why I have so many slides and thoughts that we can go from direction to direction. I rely heavily upon those that support the teams of the eye and so forth, that in this dialogue, sometimes you hear content from the same source repetitively, and it may make a certain point to you, but it doesn't resonate with you until you maybe hear it from another person. So I ask that they collaborate with my conversation. I apologize in advance if I take any thunder away from any presentations that follow, but the context of our conversation is the use of technology and what we use it for within hospitality. I'm going to stand closer to the speaker. It is not about bleeding edge. We're not going to talk about flipping robots and dancing dogs and so forth. We're not going to talk about buzzwords, even though AI is a real word, and I don't mean any disrespect to the title. The usabilities of it are an integrated process. There is advanced thoughts of AI, and we can talk about the wonderful world of what 2050 is. We can talk about big data. We can talk about Bitcoin and blockchain and all these things that catch our eye on things as what's new and innovative, because we as a culture have learned that new must be better than old. And we have also unfortunately learned through the past of the development of digital marketing that the latest item is a silver bullet that solves all the previous problems, that one thing can create the solution for all things. For those who deal with it every day, we know that's not true. We know that it's now an integrated process of bits and pieces of things, small little incrementalities that collectively make changes to what we do, not necessarily one single thing. So to that end, I hope to bring us through some conversations about the usabilities of real technology with a flow purpose, which we'll get to, as to the integrations of our disciplines. We've operated, unfortunately, as an industry in silos. And my apologies for the bio that you have. I grew up in hospitality. I used to own restaurants as a chef. I went into from food and beverage into hotels, hotel operations, went in, started being corporate, then got into e-commerce. So all of what I do is based in hospitality. And to me, and please put this as a filter as we talk, my core element is I always ask the first question of anything that we deal with, does it help the guest? Because ultimately, without that purpose, there is no reason for it. Because if we don't help the guest, which in turn helps our staff, which in turn helps those that own the company, that make the revenue, we're not functioning in the proper vertical. If we're looking at it from reverse, it creates issues and problems because we're forcing product and technology on people that it isn't truly making a benefit for. So please understand, I look at it from the up towards it. Does it actually ultimately help the guest environment? And that's our spirit of the heart kind of thing. As I said, I have multiple slides. This is my intended flow for the day. Whether we go off the reservation in tangents, I do make that offer to you. I also make an offer that if in any time you have an issue or something that is bugging you, a revenue problem, a marketing problem, we have collectively, as pointed out, the keys to any answer that we want in this room. And I'll make a guarantee to that, that should we start discussing a particular issue that needs resolution to it, if we can't solve it within 5 minutes, collectively and with myself, I dedicate another 3 hours of my time to help you with that process. Because I believe so strongly that the talent that is in the room, the knowledge that is in the room, could not in any way not tackle any issue that any one individual has. So think of it from the fact that we have this unique opportunity for now and for the remainder of the day, past my time of being able to speak, that we can do that. Pretty much what we're going to do is, I want to give some exposure to the technology as to some things you may or may not be aware of. If you're already aware of it, my apologies for the repetition. If you're not aware of it, it gives you a context to our conversation. I ask that you take out your phones, put them on the table, because we're going to use a process, if it doesn't slow us down too much, called Mentimeter, which is an engagement platform. One of the first slides we'll get to is who's in the room. We'll just quantify by categorization as to job titles and so forth. And then we'll use it, again, if it doesn't slow us down too much, as to creating word clouds. The word clouds will be based on your responses, questions, things you may want to make sure to get remembered, things that made impressions for you. Because out of context, as mentioned, this little stand over here is recording the presentation. This little round thing is actually recording it in 360. And all of that, plus the deck and everything about the links I'm about to show, the tools I'm about to show, the technology I'm about to show, the files I'm about to show, all will be on a link. And so you can go and get this stuff, because hopefully we'll have so many things to talk about. Usually the average retention rate is 40%. And you want to be able to go back to some stuff. Hopefully it'll be interesting enough to be worth your time after that. That is the link. You can write it down now. I'll present it at the end later. Nothing's there now other than hi and thank you for meeting you. I promise over the weekend when I get back and recover from the red eye that I'll be taking Friday night, that I will be loading the video and the slide deck and all the associated content. And to that also, and anybody that wants to contribute content to, that wants to make sure it collectively goes into the conversation, I'll be happy to add that in there to that process. Okay, our first Mentimeter of the day. If you've not used Mentimeter before, it's relatively simple. You go to the website menti.com, and in there there'll be a dialog box. You simply type in the code 354663 and indicate who you are. And if it's not there, my apologies. I try to be broad and without making it too much of a scale. And again, these, and I mentioned this to Heidi, they're fun, but they slow down sometimes. And I don't want to slow down our conversation or squander our time by being, there we go. And also, I apologize if I put my back to anyone while I'm speaking. I always have, like I said, the difficulty of starting the session because I don't know where exactly to start. My apologies for the noise above. For some reason, my Apple wants to do a mirror screen and not a presenter screen, so you're going to get everything that pops up in the top corner right now. I was told by a friend of mine, I do a live show every week in case you ever want to get onto it. We've been doing it for almost 5 years. It's called This Week in Hospitality Marketing. We're in 28 countries. We have over 10,000 people, excuse me. I keep using the old number. Over 10,000 people to join us each week. It's an open dialogue. It's a microcosmic way of what this room will operate, I hope like. I have 6 talking heads with me. Well, you can listen to it in audio, you can watch it in video, you can participate in it live if you want to. I say this because one of them gave me a great recommendation because I always tell them I have a hard time starting. Is to start with a time marker. It's okay. So here's my time marker that I wanted to start with. It is May 2nd, 2020. You just got off the phone being congratulated in front of everybody here and beyond on having the most successful year you've ever had. It's been the most profitable, the most beneficial, the most well-driven by your property and your company. As you sit back from that call, you think about where the nexus of all that happened, the whole past year, the whole process of what created that accolade of being successful. And I would hope you think back to this date, May 2nd, 2019, as nascent of that, starting point. Things that you saw that created pieces to a puzzle, maybe a roadmap you hadn't thought about, and it created conversations, maybe some actions you didn't consider, some acceptance of things that you were recommended but didn't take action on. And you think back that maybe that was the process that started it, at least it contributed to it. That's my goal for the hour that we have, is that may start that conversation for you. So that's my big movement. All right, lots of marketing. Ownership, blend, corporate, blend. For those who actually blend, if you don't mind contributing, what is the blend that you're referring to? So I have some idea of the correlations to what you consider blend. Who is of the blend? They're anonymously blended. Oh, GM.
So technically I'm a general manager, but I am responsible for a lot of those things, so.
Okay,
I'm a
excellent.
blend.
Thank you very much.
Sales and marketing.
Sales and marketing. Yeah, okay, yeah. Between the two, I did keep those separate. Very good. Well, a lot of our conversation obviously will be next just on marketing, but part of the conversation will be also the progression of the collaboration between revenue management and marketing. I don't want to exclude sales. Sales is an integrated component of that, but if we keep adding too many aspects, you will never leave this room. I will keep you here for days. But please understand that all of those things work together. They have to work together. I use an analogy of a fishing boat, because I live in Florida. Revenue management has the two best lures in the world. They have rate and they have occupancy. When put into the right place where there's fish, they catch them all the time because those lures catch business. Okay? If they're in the wrong waters and there's no fish, they can have the best lures in the world and they're not catching anything. Marketing is the person that has all the chum and the bait. They throw it in the water, they can gather all the fish around you, but they don't know how to catch them. They can bring them to you, but they can't get them in the boat. Sales is the person that's throwing out the casting net. They get a lot of small fish, every once in a while a big fish, but they get a lot of fish. And sometimes they get enough fish, you don't need to get more fish, because they have plenty of fish. To not ruin the analogy, the boat captain is the GM. Operations has to facilitate what it is you're offering. Without the facilitation, none of this works. If you don't have a boat, you can't go fishing. One front desk agent that doesn't know what brought that guest into your front desk ruins the entire promotion because that creates a dissension between the guest and the experience they're about to have. And by the way, the accounting people are people that keep gas in the boat. They're the ones that make sure that you have the resources and the controls and the monitoring that go along with the process. So that's my analogy of a fishing boat and how we all live in one space. So, anyways, we're going to get into what are we really dealing with. I have a video, it's about 6 minutes, and I know it's a consumption of time, but it's an important consumption of time in my mind. For those in the closer to APAC world, you are familiar with WeChat in a different way than most people are, and its usabilities within certain cultures. And I want to bring out this New York Times video that talks more specifically about how it's used in China and how it relates to why it's important to us. Some things I also want to make sure we have in the open dialogue. As all the geeks in the room know, this F8 just was running through, it's wrapping up. There were some new revelations as to how groups are going to be handled, messengers being handled, the new look of Facebook, Zuckerberg's vision, all these things, they do have a play in our environment. What the true meaning of those are yet to be determined, but they certainly can come up in our dialogue. So this is the video I'd like to play. We'll go after that.
If you are sitting in the United States or Europe right now, you've probably never used a Chinese app. But the reality is, if you want to know how the internet will develop, China, the land once known for its cheap rip-offs, has actually become a guide to the future. You know, the internet is the internet, but for China, the internet is more like an intranet. It's largely walled off from the Western world by this incredibly complex system of filters and blocks that we call the Great Firewall. And basically, the Great Firewall blocks any foreign site the Communist Party doesn't think it can control. So that means there is no Facebook, no Twitter, no Google. Instead, what filled the internet vacuum was a generation of Chinese copycats that have grown into huge companies. So for Google, you had Baidu. For YouTube, you had Youku. For Twitter, you had Sina Weibo. The list goes on and on. It's almost as if the Chinese internet is a lagoon that's inside to the greater ocean of the internet. And in that lagoon, there are these swamp monster apps that bear some resemblance to the creatures in the ocean, but are mutated in some ways because they evolved in a different kind of environment. But things have started to shift in the sense that before, no one outside of the lagoon really cared about the swamp monsters. But now, all of a sudden, some of the features they've developed are so amazing that Western apps are trying to copy them. The greatest example of this is WeChat. WeChat is an example of, for lack of a better word, a super app. It's a Swiss Army knife that basically does everything for you. It's your WhatsApp, Facebook, Skype, and Uber. It's your Amazon, Instagram, Venmo, and Tinder. But it's other things we don't even have apps for. There are hospitals that have built out whole appointment booking systems. There are investment services. There are even heat maps that show how crowded a place is, be it your favorite shopping mall or a popular tourist site. The list of services goes on basically forever. But it's not the variety of things you can do on WeChat that makes it so powerful. It's the fact that they're all in one app. So why does that matter? Hypothetically, imagine you're sitting at home and one day you notice your corgi is dirty. You open WeChat, hit a few buttons, and a few hours later a man shows up at your door with some shampoo and a big bag. Your dog gets clean and he looks for you. You take a photo, you share it with your friends, and tag the dog cleaning business. You haven't left yet. Your friend who likes Hello Kitty and works a boring office job is slacking off at work and looking at WeChat. She sees the photo of your clean corgi. She decides she wants her poodle clean. She clicks the tag on your photo and orders the same service. Within seconds, the man with the big vacuum is on his way to her house. She pays him, and he's happy because he got paid instantly on WeChat. She starts chatting with you to thank you. Neither of you have left the app. While chatting, she tells you about a new hip noodle joint. She says, you have to come. It's a schlep, but you accept. She orders food while still at her desk. You order a taxi. She pays for the food. On the way to her house, the man with the big vacuum invests the money he earned from both of you into a wealth management product that's probably a little too risky. Neither of you nor the man with the big vacuum have left yet. Both of you arrive and the app tells the kitchen you're there. Your WeChat profile photo pops up on the right. It's an old photo from the year you had that weird part in your hair. Of course she makes a comment. Your food is served. You notice your meat is a bit overcooked, so you snap a photo and post a disparaging restaurant review. You're already on your phone, and you remember you still owe your friend money because she paid. You transfer her money. Neither of you, the man with the big vacuum, nor the restaurant, have left the app. At the restaurant, there are no menus, there are no waiters, there is no cashier. There is only WeChat. By rolling so many functions into one single app, it's altered the concept of virality. It's no longer just videos or images or tweets that can go viral. It's a dog washer, noodles, all sorts of companies and products to get the push of the social network. Here in China, that network is 700 million people. It sounds great, right? Well, it is, but using a single app to find a date, schedule an oil change, or notarize a document also enables WeChat to collect a staggering volume of personal data. They know what you talk about, who you talk about it with, what you read, where you go, why you're going there, who's there, how you spend money when you're online, how you spend money when you're offline. The list goes on indefinitely. For advertisers, this is a miracle. It's the combined data of Facebook, Amazon, Google, and PayPal, all in one place. The problem is, all of the data is information Chinese companies are forced to share with the Chinese government, which has a long record of human rights violations, and isn't exactly shy about stalking its citizens. So if you're not in China, why does this matter? It matters because we're starting to see a number of Western tech companies attempt to replicate super apps like WeChat. For the companies, it's incredibly powerful. And for you and me, it's convenient and even transformative technology. But of course, it could also be problematic. Concentrating so much data in so few hands could lay the groundwork for an overwhelming world where companies and governments can track every single movement you make.
This video was done before Analytica came up, before GDPR rolled in. GDPR is a result of literally this. Us as marketers have never been able to control our thirst for data usage. And we have another example we'll talk about as to why that validates some of those. I've had the privilege of going back to China. For those who have, I had a client over there, and I was going back to Shanghai last time, and I downloaded the app over there compared to what we have here, and it is an amazing thing. I mean, what it does, you can be in this room, and you can literally say, okay, everyone that wants to give me their business card, let me know, and you hit where you are, you put a little circle where you are, and hit it, and then everybody that volunteered their information goes right into your contacts. Just crazy little things like that that we just don't have functionalities for. On the negative side of this, for those who may be keeping up with China and what they're doing with some of these things, China now has a social index. This index is controlled only by them. There is no influence on the outside as to how this is being done. And your social index literally determines whether you have the ability to rent in certain spaces, get jobs at certain levels. Of course, credit and things like that we already even have our own are also controlled over there. And their social index is controlled by the fact that there's cameras and so many things that if you go to the liquor store too many times, that's negative points, which would mean I would be bankrupt and homeless at this point probably. But if you hang out with the wrong people, if you've been caught by the military or the police by too many times, these scores change. And there is no place to go, no office to contact that changes those numbers for you. They are rewarding good behavior, penalizing bad behavior in the hopes of changing behavior. And that exists right now in China. Now, I don't keep pointing towards China for that particular reason, but the idea of it is that we have GDPR because we couldn't control how we handle data. And there are poster children of this. Marriott, unfortunately, is going to possibly be the first poster child of the enforcement of this. I think the last estimate of the true penalty, if the EU did put teeth to it, was over $8 or $9 million in penalties, should they pursue it to the full extent of their capabilities. The basic rule of it is that everyone should have GDPR compliance within their operations. If you're not familiar with it, it's a great thing to talk to your support teams to go and put together, but basically, it's either $20 million or 5% of your gross sales globally, whichever is greater. And that means if you can't identify, control, and maintain who has access to your data and show how you're handling it, there means, and the ability to purge it by request. And it's not because whether you are communicating with those in the EU, a U.S. citizen in the EU receiving your email because you have them as a U.S. citizen is just as in violation as an EU person receiving it. And there's a lot of other controls to that as well. That's just a simplistic version of it. So it's beyond just identifying you have cookies on your website. There's a lot of depth to it that needs to be put into play. Oh, here we go here. So to bring this home a little bit, and this is our aspect of trying to show what we're doing right now. For those who have iPhones, don't worry for those who have Androids. If you already know where this goes, by all means, we can share the information at the very end. If you don't, I would recommend, I don't want to try to read this ahead of you. Please follow the instructions on the screen as to taking your iPhone and taking the time to scroll all the way down, as it says, as long as it scrolls on some of these things. And follow the process. And please, when you get to that point and see what it is I hope you see, raise your hand so I can ask what it is that you do see. Anyone there yet? What do you see? Where you been? How long you were there? Now Tim, gentleman that runs Apple, says that this is your information. It's kept local on your phone. Doesn't mean that they're not using it. And when I say that, your apps have to use your location-based information to be better performance. We've surrendered that personalization. We as marketers wanted that. We don't like the term, 50% of my marketing works and 50% doesn't. I just don't know which 50%. We want that individuality. We've strived for the market of one. I want to know what the individual wants. So we as individuals, as more and more technologies have been presented to us, we in turn go over and share more information so that personalization has more of an effect for us. This is one of those things. For those who are old enough, myself included, there was a lot of technology that got replaced by these little guys. Cameras, phones, GPSs, things we didn't even have that we got, and then all of a sudden they got small and put in one thing. These things track incessantly everything. Now, not to leave everyone out from Android, I have another video, a little shorter, that might give you some sense of, no lack of comfort, I should say.
We know that Google is tracking us. We agree to it when we set up our phones. So we wanted to figure out what exactly Google is learning about us throughout the day. So here's what we're going to do. We have two identical phones. The only difference between these two phones is this one is in airplane mode. Both of the phones lack a SIM card, and they haven't been set up to access any Wi-Fi networks. So for all intents and purposes, these phones have no connection to a data network. We're going to keep them with us throughout the day. And while I travel around DC, we're going to figure out just what Google is finding out about me.
Our first stop, Sim's convenience store, just outside of Fox Pier, for a quick coffee. From there, we took a walk to the Capitol and took a quick walk around the Senate office buildings, and then decided to hop in a car and head around town.
Hello. We'll go to the Children's Hospital, please.
To run our test, we had to do more than walk the block, so we took a tour around our nation's capital. First, due north to the Children's National Medical Center Hospital, then west to St. Albans School and the National Cathedral. Our tour around town was a 14-mile journey that lasted more than an hour. The entire time, the phones had no access to the internet. Not a Wi-Fi connection and not any cellular data service. It almost seemed quaint to assume Google wouldn't even be able to collect data on me.
Head back to the bureau, my friend. Oh, that church is beautiful.
Google's business model is simple. Collect data on its users and then use that data to sell targeted ads. It's a business model called surveillance capitalism. But does that critical data collection work even when your phones aren't connected?
So we're back here at our Fox Bureau in DC, and we've got both of our phones exactly how we left with them. The only difference, really, I I snapped a couple of bad selfies at the National Cathedral. But otherwise, they have stayed in my pocket for the entire day. So let's find out what they know. This is our man-in-the-middle device. It's basically a Wi-Fi network that these phones are going to connect to once we turn their Wi-Fi on. It's going to pass data through it on the way to Google. But on the way, we're actually going to get a copy of the same data that Google's going to get. We'll be able to decrypt it and then find out where we've been throughout the day.
Within minutes, the numbers rolled in. The phone that wasn't on airplane mode registered more than 100 locations, 130 activities, and even 152 barometric readings. As soon as it hooked up to our Wi-Fi, it transmitted 300 kilobytes of data straight to Google. The phone even logged our exact locations, tracking us all around town, the Capitol, the hospital, the school, and the cathedral.
Now you may notice what's missing here is the exact route that we took, but it got that data too. It knows when I got out of the car.
The metadata has a time log down to the very second, tracking everything when they think that you're walking, riding, and yes, even getting out of the car.
Okay, so you're thinking, this isn't a big deal, I'll just put my phone in airplane mode. Yeah, we thought of that too. This is the other phone that we had with us that no SIM card also remained in airplane mode the entire time. Let's see what kind of data it captured.
The phone with airplane mode activated actually logged more locations and activities than the other phone, and it also transferred hundreds of kilobytes of data to Google as soon as it was activated.
The only thing that's missing from this map is our stop at the Children's Hospital, but it still knows we were there. There it is. Exiting vehicle, 100% accuracy.
Through complicated user agreements and free software, Google gets users to sign away their privacy for nothing. They're even following you in places that most people would expect total privacy. Government buildings, a children's hospital, a private school, a church. Every move you make, every step you take, Google is watching you.
Hopefully you've recovered. What do you think the value to Google you are individually for the content that you are sharing? What do you think is the dollar value that Google assigns to you as an individual? You want to venture a guess? Thousands of dollars?
Couple million.
Millions of dollars? Unfortunately, it's $12.44. Now, understand we're dealing with millions of people, so it's an understandable thing. We're worth a lot more than we think, but at the end of the day, individually, the data we're sharing is $12.44. And it is siphoned off to a variety of people. To people in this room with me, and I get that data, I use that data, I filter that data, I use it to be more productive in things that I'm being asked for my clients with that data. The idea is that we're trying to create that personalization to it. I have to make a confession. I asked Heidi if we had a cell tower repeater at the property. I was going to go and play, not a trick, but just to show you the accesses that you have. If you have cell repeaters in your hotel to amplify your cellular reception, if you're not near enough of a tower or resort and you have a weekend and to provide better guest experience, you amp it. You can go on your own repeater, and I would ask at this time to have queued them, and they would have all texted you the same message. Because you are in control of people's cell phones when they're using your tower. And you have that ability. And you have that ability on your Wi-Fi as well. Not as dramatic, but by using your Wi-Fi, you have methods of connectivity, of being able to contain data, usabilities, engagements. And the more you can create more engagement value to the guest, the more they're going to rely upon that. Concierge levels, things that when they're at your website, when they're on your Wi-Fi, look different in a concierge relationship than they would be if you're not on your Wi-Fi, which is more of an external relationship. But we can talk a little bit more about that later. Anyways, so these are some scary stats, and I apologize, even with the big screen, they're hard to read. There's two that I want to point out. This one first, which is 94% of people surveyed keep their mobile phone within 3 feet at all times. Please raise your hand if you disagree with that. The other is that, and this is to our point, and probably expanded upon a little bit later after my conversation, is that 1 hour and 16 minutes per day is being used in social media. There are a lot of other scary stats on that slide, and as I mentioned before, all of these slides, the recordings, the links, and everything will be made available on that link, so you don't by any means have to worry about trying to grab it and track it. It'll be there for you to look at anytime you'd like. But there is a massive amount of dependency that we have on our technology now. And so, a little bit of why. This statement is very true, and this was put in, by the way, since I'm on mirror mode, I added last night about a third more of the presentation than I anticipated, because of conversations that thankfully were contributed to me, as to things that they want to make sure didn't get missed. The same reason why I asked you all this morning, make sure if there's anything that we're missing for this, so that we don't make sure that nothing walks out the room going, yeah, but you didn't talk about that. It's all in here. So, this slide came back in because it's a reminder of what is so cool about what we do. It used to be white picket fence, suburbia, 2.5 kids. Maybe it was the half kid that scared people, but people changed their mind. Now, we blame the millennials on this paradigm shift. We blame the fact that 2008 with the financial crisis made us rethink things. Maybe it was 2001 with the tragedies that we had. It changed what we thought would be what we want. I can tell you from personal life experience, I lost a few friends one year. My wife and I decided, why are we working so hard to save and working so hard? Let's enjoy what we're doing without, spending money as if there is no tomorrow, but enjoy a little bit of while we're going along because life changes. Apparently, I'm not the only one who thought that. Because people have decided experience-based living is much better than possessing and owning things. Those things are not near as valuable, at least not now. Now, with this, we are those people. We have what they want. We are the creators of the experiences that they have. We're not just beds. We're not just locations for beds. I mean, there's different paradigms as to the products that we offer, but in this room, we offer so much more than just the fact that I have a place to sleep while I'm doing something else. We actually drive the experience. We engage the experience. We are what everyone wants. We should never lose sight of the fact that this is the coolest part of what we do. That out of all these mechanics and processes and methodologies and technologies, at the core is the smile of a guest at the front desk that tells you how much of an amazing experience they have. Or the comment that they make on platforms that are now out there as to what they enjoy most. That's the core of what's so important to us. All right. And this is our next Mentimeter. I don't think it slowed us down too much, but we'll try it again. This will create a word cloud. This is open-ended as to question in your head, whether you want to raise your hand or not. You can pop it up here. A reaction to something we've already shown. A word that you want to make sure gets pointed out. A question, anything that pops into your mind. It's really just meant, and the reason why I do this is this result will be available in that deck, in that presentation, because this is a cue point. This is a milestone point that you can just throw stuff up. Yes, it's not writing something down, it's not typing something down, it's just like, that popped in my head. I want to make sure that word pops up, because when I look back at this deck, it's worth looking back on. I want to be cued that, oh yeah, that's what I was thinking at that time. So by all means, if everyone's a blank slate, it's 2 polar bears fighting in the snowstorm. We'll give it another couple of seconds, and if not, you can always still continue to use it. They're watching this, yeah, that's true. Anybody want to verbalize anything? Questions, comments, perspectives? I mean, I know the words are coming up, but anybody want to just cue in on something right now as to what we've gone to this point? We really just did an exposure at this point. We just brought you to a point of conversation. And now we're going to dive into how it values us within the industry and what do we use tool-wise to improve upon the engagements that we can create. Outstanding, thank you. How do we bring it to life? We will definitely be talking about that. What is good data? Definitely talk. Actually, I did videos early because it's early morning. Videos are easy to listen to and watch rather than somebody the whole time like me. So I made sure that those were kind of an early introduction. I have other videos in queue. We're not going to have other videos unless it's important. One of the things about what is good data, I do have a video that will be a link in the presentation. We certainly, if we have time, I'll be happy to play it, but it's the skewing of data and the data types that you have. And that just because it's data doesn't mean it's good data, because it can be imbalanced data, because we as humans tend to influence our data. So I have that as a backup to our conversations. All right, we can move on. I want to give some examples of usabilities. I'm not here, I am here, to discuss mechanics of it, but I don't want to dive into methodologies. Facebook can teach you better than I can teach you how to use Facebook. Google can teach you better how to use Google than I can teach you. What I want to put is the relevance of what you use them for to what you need them to be done with. How to translate it to hospitality usage. So I'm going to use Facebook as an example at this particular moment and talk about how I use Facebook with a client to do a solution to something. I have revenue managers in the room. I also have marketing people in the room. This is genuinely 2 weeks out. We had a group that canceled. It represented 62% of the business I had for that weekend. Now, they were a repeat annual guest. We could have used the attrition clause, okay? But through a tragedy, they had to cancel. It was no fault of their own. Somebody had passed. And it was a big group, obviously. It was a large hotel, actually. And we could have gotten the money for the 1 year that they canceled. We would never have gotten it back afterwards because of it. So we made the choice centric, we're sorry for the loss. Now I got 62% occupancy I gotta fill. What are your options? What do you do? What are some things that you would do? I'll take the obvious off the table. Lower rate, jump into OTAs, and hope there's residual demand. Let's just take that off the table. Because that's the big alert. Let's dump the rate and really irritate our comp set. We're going to the basement, boys. What happens when you do that? You put money back on the table because people that booked at a different rate now see a different rate that's better. That goes up, so you're putting that on the pile of pain and despair. What else happens? What else could you do? What are some creative ideas? I've had them say, oh, we're going to send out an email. Great, yes. We can do that. What else? Grin and bear it, have an explanation at the next end of the meeting. Why you're good people and didn't do the attrition clause, and we're all happy and sad and cry, and please don't shoot me. I'll tell you what we did. We used Facebook. What we did is a thing called custom audiences. Custom audiences is when you offer to Facebook, and I'm sure that it'll be discussed in better detail than myself, is you send up emails. You're not sending up all the data you know about them, you're just sending up emails. And Facebook will see who they know by based on that email and create a custom audience, a list of people that it knows. Now, this is the amazingly powerful stuff of Facebook. Facebook knows currently over 55,000 data points associated with each one of us. And through that, all of the filterable information, and when I mean filterable information, I make this as an example, and please do not accept this as politically incorrect or anything, because I literally made this as a group set one time, is I was looking for a one-armed Hindu man in Amish country looking for a Tex-Mex restaurant. This was 5 years ago, no, 7 years ago. And I had an audience that I could send a post to, an ad to in Facebook that quantified that list. And Facebook won't let you do a list that's smaller than 20 people because it says that you can identify individuality. So it had to be enough people that qualified that, which was stunning in itself. Now, we have the ability to say that same person, and I've done this, has two daughters, one that goes to Penn State, drives a BMW that's at least 3 years old, his other daughter drives a Mercedes-Benz, they own a home that's at least worth $1 million, they've owned for over 3 years in upstate New York. And I still have a list. Crazy. The granularity of what you can define. So we made custom audiences with these filterable capabilities. We took first everybody that was on the books for that weekend. We made a custom audience. Then we took everybody within 150 miles. Why would we do that? Drive money. Obviously, we're past our flight window. We have drive money. You're not going to send it across the country for something they can't take advantage of. So we're isolating the opportunity for the person they can take advantage of. We also took everybody that was the same time last year, thinking, and minus the group, please understand, in the hopes that if they had a reason to be here at the same time last year, they would have another reason to be here again. You don't get 100% capture each year, so maybe there's people out of that group that might want to come back. We put all those lists together, but we took the list of everybody that was on the books and made what's called a negative list. Meaning about what we were up to do, they're not going to see. To not necessarily know what we did. We only offered the group rate. We weren't trying to be greedy. We weren't going to the basement. We weren't trying to hard sell low rate. We just took the group rate, which was a negotiated rate lower than bar, and offered it to them. Sold out. Doesn't happen all the time. Please do not consider. What's that disclaimer? The mileage you receive may be different than ours or something, whatever. Just a miracle or whatever. The idea is, the premise of this is, targeting the right content to the right people that are most interested in what you're doing. That example of sending an email out, you would be doing the same thing with your shotgunning. There are people in this list that are on your email list because you sent the email list out. The issue is, you also send to people that, I'm on the other side of the country, I can't do anything like that. And that might be in the 5th time for the camel's back for your emails, and click, you've just lost them, and the lifetime value of the guest goes away. Does anybody know how, this is a lost art. Anybody still know how to calculate lifetime value of a guest? Because it's changed. Marriott changed it. Lifetime value of a guest used to be calculated over 10 years over the frequency of a 3-year life. That was your lifetime value. Marriott says after 4 visits, you're no longer a lifetime. You're a new guest. They just changed the rule. Because the perpetuity of a repeat guest with the dilution of brand has created, they want to segment it according to the relationship that they inspired based on the last stay that they had. So they shortcut the lifetime value proposition. Anyways. Any questions from that so far? I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
We do that with our audience, which we own, but is there a way with Bolton's to get closest?
I have been asked fun questions about data acquisition. And I can tell you that from a brand perspective, there is ways to do data acquisition within your brand. The most convenient and non-violation of your brand relationship is that you have access to your arrivals list. If you have your night auditor begin to bring down your arrivals list daily, you'll begin to create data on dates of arrival plus all the data associated with them in the times that they have. And you can begin to accumulate that data for same time last year, or what they stayed for. You can look at the type of stay that they had, whether they brought their family, whether it's business, whether it's corporate, what segmentation there was, and you can begin to silo that data and correspondingly communicate because of that particular interest. Not that the same traveler travels for the same reason, but you can begin to segment that data better.
So, I can actually answer that too, because I used to work with them on it. You actually, they do not give the hotels the data at all. And even the night audits and all of that, you have to retype all of that information. You can't sort it. They won't give it to you yourself.
No, they won't give it to yourself. That's very true.
So,
but you can take it down, and I did shortcuts and things. You can pull it down, but you can also do character recognition, OCR, and pull it off. I know I'm sneaky. Because they purposely keep it out of formats that you can use. The functionality is there, the methodology is long strong. Because you literally you can print it out, import it, and then come to OCR transition it. And Meredith has the same issues.
But
Yes,
Loren, you're saying you're not emailing those folks. You're taking those
No.
names, giving them to Facebook.
no, please do not email them.
Yes.
Okay? Please do not email them. This is data acquisition, not engagement. Because, and very much to the point, unsubscribes and things like this, you're not mirroring them at that point. But please also know your relationship with the brand is, as you upload data, you ask them to purge what it is that you're doing. You can keep current with your data. Okay? But it's used to doing what we're just talking about, custom audiences, integrations, usabilities. So yes, yeah, do not email. Thank you for the clarification, because I understood what he said. All right, meeting initiative, another example of this I would like to make. I was speaking at Focusrite one year, and for the company I was working for, I didn't want to fight the traffic in the morning. This was down at the Dip in Hollywood. And so the company I worked for had Hollywood Beach Marriott up the road. I was going to stay at the hotel that Focusrite was at, the Dip, until I found it was a $4.99 rate. I'm like, maybe I know. So I checked my company's hotel and said, hey, are you sold out? Because of course we can't displace revenue when we stay right on hotels. And they asked, well, heck no, we're in the 60-some-odd percentile range, whatever it was. And I said, well, why aren't you guys busier than that? You got this huge conference down the road. They're like, what conference? I'm like, y'all do reader boards, right? Anyway, I asked them what the rack was. And they said $3.99. I'm like, okay, so I made this ad, and I targeted everyone that liked Focusrite. And I targeted everyone that followed the level 1 sponsorships of Focusrite. And I sent them this ad that said basically, hey, stay up the road by 5 minutes, $100 less. Sold out. So we thought we hit lightning. That's cool. Well, Focusrite rotates every couple of years. Went back 2 years later, did the same thing. Hit the big red button, beep, business. The idea is that you're targeting the content and the opportunity to the people most interested in its engagement. More direct example, an F&B example, and this goes back to a conversation we had about old school marketing, new tools. When I owned restaurants, I knew if I wanted a good happy hour, I had to bring young single women in. Because the young single guys followed. It was a simple thing. Back in my day, however, before the internet, was when you told a group of guys or a group of your friends you were going to meet somebody, you had to wait for everybody to show up before you went someplace else because you didn't have the internet or the ability to call people to tell people, this place is dead, let's go someplace else. Nowadays, they can look into your place. If they don't see what they like, they bing, hit something to their friends and they're off somewhere else and you never even knew you lost all that business. So old school marketing was, let's bring in young single women. Now this bar restaurant had been in existence for, it celebrated its 35-year anniversary. It just went through a $30 million+ renovation. It wasn't location-based, everyone knew it existed, but in those 35 years, 71 other restaurants grew up around it in walking distance. This was down in Delray Beach, Florida. And this is Boston, by the way. So what we did was, valet parking was kind of the currency of the area. If you could park somewhere, then you could walk anywhere. So what we offered was to all females, 24 to 34, single, because we want to mess the family up, that enjoyed live music, show this post to our valet, get free valet parking. We had 150 parking spots, and at 5:45 we had to take the post down and offer us a free drink because we ran out of parking spaces. At 9:45 we're going to resend it out, thinking we lost attrition and people are shifting in different 9:45 we couldn't offer anything but a free drink again because nobody left. And that's my computer. Sorry about that. So we thought again, lightning. Anytime we wanted to do this, we got better at it. Now, to point out what we pointed out to the 24-year-olds and everything else was, sorry about that, blocked the screen. Was we did it within a 5-mile radius. You can do that. You can do it in proximities. When I refer to proximities, you can also do that to your competitors. When you create a proximity, you can create 3 definitions of audiences that develops. Those who live within the radius you've defined, those that live within 25 miles of the radius you defined, and those who live 99 miles away at least from the radius you defined. Travelers. So you can identify your competitor, narrowcast the radius, know that you're speaking to all the travelers, and send them a message, especially for competitors that maybe have less than great reviews. Struggling with the quality of your room, so forth and so on, come under our hotel. Depends how aggressive you are in the market. I'll give you an example of how we did geofencing, which is a different technique, same methodology in some ways. I had a hotel that just was new to the Calgary airport. It was the 5th new airport hotel. Nobody knew us, nobody knew anything about it. Now Calgary is notorious for delays and flight delay, weather changes and so forth. So we geofenced the airport with a product you know and get now, geofeed. And we said, out of a series of 25 to 35 keywords that we had on all social platforms, delayed, stuck, weathered in, whatever. Whenever they use those terms, triggered a response on that platform saying, hey, stuck at the airport, 10% off our best rate, and our shuttle is at gate 5 waiting for you to take you to the hotel. Give you a good night rest. And our competitors, they're also at gate 5, watching this parade of people wait in line to a new hotel that they never knew existed, wondering how did we get all those people to go on our bus? Because we talked to them at the time that we needed this most. If you ever want to get scared, there's an app called Banjo. And it also means that you can always keep up ahead of news and so forth. Banjo, you'd be surprised how much we post publicly. We don't tend to restrict most of our social postings. This app will show you can go anywhere geographically, and it will show all the social postings on all the platforms you're connected to, what people are posting. You can actually get ahead of the news by literally going to the news sources as it pops up in trending, and go there and see the stuff. But it also means that you can sit at a competitor's bar, see that somebody posted on Instagram a picture of the bar that looks strangely like from the location of that gentleman, and see it come up and say, hey, I own the bar down the road, same one I was talking about, go down there, show this post, and I'll buy a free drink, and watch them stand up and walk out of your competitor. Not scalable, but really cool. Some of the things we did better with this was free. We did dark posts, if anybody's a question about that. We went into the paid sector of this. We started isolating out, knowing what was in the radius, law firms, or law offices, retail offices, medical offices, started designating certain things, income levels, single women that have lower income, more likely to be more interested in going to places that there's an opportunity to meet guys that are willing to go over buy drinks. Old school marketing. Anyways, all right. This is our last Mentimeter to this, and we're going to dive into tools. That was some just practical usages of this, and I'm sorry if I skipped the stone on the surface a little too much about how it's done. I'll be more than happy to follow up on details, and I think there's going to be more detailed conversations after me anyway, so I don't want to steal thunders away from things that are going to come final. But
Too late.
damn it. I apologize.
Okay.
Usually when I'm about the end of the conversation, it's like, I was going to say that. Dang it.
This means how high you're going in the afternoon so I can rewrite a lot of this.
Rewrite all. Throw that out. Let's do the next one. Banjo, yes, it is a scary app. Geeking out. Yeah, that's true. I am. A few more seconds. Because the tool part's going to be the fun part. Strangely enough, all that we've spent time on is really a precursor to what we're about to talk to. Okay. You're more than welcome to continue answering. That will be available afterwards, but I wanted to move on so we don't run out of opportunity to speak to other things. I put this as a blank slide because usually at this point, exposure to what's going on in the world, exposure to how it's used or how it could be used, all the different platforms' usabilities. I put this as a point because sometimes we get stumped. We get the writer's block. Okay, that's great. Fortunately for those mostly in the room, you function with this every day, so this isn't necessarily a component issue for you. But I want to go through the methodologies of, okay, so if we're going to create a starting point, what is that starting point? What is the methodology of the process to this? Pretty much this is a roadmap of, if this is your first exposure to these thoughts, this is where you start. If this is just reaffirmation of what you do, this is maybe contextually variations to what you're already doing. But pretty much, you have to develop a KPI. The key performance indicator that you're creating has to have the same vernacular as your partner in another discipline. Revenue management and marketing have to have the same vernacular. It was mentioned about ROAS. What is ROAS? Return on ad spend, okay? From a marketer's perspective, that's a benchmark for me. My return on ad spend, okay, is a benchmark. If I have a 20-to-1 ROAS, I'm feeling pretty good. You gave me $1, I give you 20 back, basically. This is where it falls apart. ROAS means nothing to revenue management. Revenue management has revenue goals. Case in point, say for instance, my revenue manager says I'm 50,000 short this month. Here's my rate structures. Here's what I have out in the market strategy. Go fetch. And I come back, I have 20-to-1 ROAS. Okay? Here's your $5,000. You took my lowest rate, pushed it out, beat your chest on a 20-to-1, I'm $45,000 short. Not happening. You have to be mutually responsible. You have to be mutually connected, mutually succeed, mutually fail. You can't run by a separate goal set, then I can run by a separate goal set. I have to attain what you have. Revenue creates the horizon line. I'm the go fetch. Marketing's the go fetch. How do I get to where I need to be? My goal was 50,000. I may be doing a 20-to-1 ROAS on what that campaign was, but I got to find $45,000 more. So that vernacular, that goal, that whatever it is, it has to be defined. Now, you have to look at your business cycle. You have to look at your events. You have to look at your entire spectrum of what your business is doing and put that in front of you. For this example, these are some of the possible purposes between event, business cycle, membership loyalty, relationships, content, consumer sentiment, whatever is the goal, it has to be mutually defined as to whether it's revenue generated, whether it's sentiment generated, whatever. But once you put that stick in the sand, everything goes backwards from that. Let's say it's an event. Here's the event date. Backwards, when does the campaign launch? Backwards, when does all the stuff for the campaign have to be conceived, created, developed, defined, ready to go, rate structure, rate code, graphics, collateral, all that stuff. Way back over here is what you know, who's in charge, when's the decision being made, what's the creative idea, what's the process of what we're doing for that event. And then way back here is where your marketer's telling you your engagement. See, revenue management works in historical context. You know historically your book window. You know historically your stay windows, your book dates, your departure dates. These are factual things that you have on your reservations, on your events, on your activities, your business cycle. Marketing has all the stuff at the beginning of that, which is when were people engaging with that event? When were they interested in what was going on? Social is even earlier. Social is the amplifier to your electric guitar. If anybody's a musician who plays or sees electric guitar, it sounds nothing without an amp. Social is not a direct channel. It in itself isn't where you sell heads and beds. It amplifies where you sell heads and beds. It's not that it can't. It's just not really good at it. It helps a lot. And in certain ways, it can excel at certain direct channels and so forth, and there's niches and ways of doing it. But in essence, it amplifies. My example to this event, going all the way back to here. So if there's an event, say mid-April, and you look and you see that people are engaged with the event in mid-January, you create social storylines. Family travel, culinary travel, whatever the categorization is that's applicable to the event. And remember, family travel can be segmented, because if anybody's traveling with a 5 to 7-year-old, it's way different than a 10 to 13-year-old. So even that's fragmented as to its concept of what you're talking about. And you're not talking about rooms and rates and the hotel availability, and it's beautiful setting at 72, and look at our great porte-cochere, which ownership loves to see, but nobody really worries about. You know, those things you're talking about out here are about the event. And as you draw closer to the event, you start talking about more specifics as to your value proposition as you relate to the event. And then when you finally get to that window that revenue management considers prime booking window, you're now beginning to show your value proposition in realistic convertible terms. Hey, so that you know our inventory is tightening up because we're so close to this event, this is your opportunity to get this, this, and this. It drives the conversation to apex the conversion, amplify your channels of conversion during the prime window of opportunity. That's the whole storyline of just an event-driven event. And that has to be fragmented every time. And it takes everybody to do that, because revenue management has to determine what it is they want out of it, how much they want out of it, and you have to go fetch it and put all these pieces to the puzzle together. You have to, does anybody do personas? When you're doing, who you expect to walk into your room at what time of year? Wonderful, because it helps define to your team. Your operations team needs to understand what you're doing. Your accounting team, who facilitates the implementation of the contracts and the paying of services, has to understand what all these things are for. So all of those things have to be understood in the context of who you're bringing in the door. Is this family time? Is this a romantic time? Is this a adventurous time? Those types of people, those personas change. Doesn't mean there's only one at a time, but it's multiple people that you're trying to bring in because you know that's the business type you're looking for. And it changes. Spring break, you have certain people. Non-spring break, summer, you know who they are. And that's where you can really solicit the engagement of your operation people to give you some insights. Again, this is the following, we kind of covered the defining a timeline for each effort. This is just a visual representation of what we just talked about. And I don't want to waste time with the other and just say we have it there in the slide deck. Now, resources. These are the tools in the toolkit. These are all the things that are functionally usable. It is by no means an exclusive list. It's just a benchmark list. And this is only for marketing. Revenue has its own. Sales has its own. But these are the functionalities that you have at your disposal for usabilities. Let me ask a quick question. I think this asked this over dinner last night, so for those who I did ask this question, you can ask me. If I could tell you what dates were people putting in your website, when they were looking for those dates, and where they were physically located, would that be valuable information? Independent hotels have an easier way of giving this information, but also you can solicit your brand to give you that information as well. I have an example, if we can get to it on the deck, of how I use that information, that marketing could actually create a forecast and more accurate than the revenue manager at the same time. Because I'm using real data versus historical data, rather than extrapolating, I'm actually correlating, but I'll show you that. Anyways, these are tools. By all means, you're more than welcome to go back to it. Take a look. Here are some more tools. These are fun tools. Let me put here. Sorry. I'll color code it. There is a limitless amount of softwares and platforms. A lot of them are free. Some of them, most of them are cheap. That will do anything and everything you need. Now, this is a conversation for brand as it is for individual. Exercise and exploit every opportunity the brand gives you. Never say no. Quantify what the value of it is, though, before you just say yes. But all of this stuff, your sales team can create its own collateral. It can create its own content. It can create its own voice, its own message. It can create its own dialogue platforms. Because one thing brand doesn't do is limit your social lateral. It can find your ability, what you can do with your website. It can silo that into different components. But laterally, socially, you can define your own content and your own engagement. These are amazing. I have a whole bunch of examples of these things as we can discuss a little bit about them. But these are here. All of these will be linked. So you can poke and peek at any of these things. These are the tools that tell you what your competitor is doing, what they're spending on their ad, what they're best performing at. This is the tools that tell you what your social competitors are doing, what their best posts, and what time of day they are, what images were used, and what offers they made. These are tools that tell you all these things. And most of them, again, are free. Up to a point, they want you to buy something, but eventually you see if there's a value to it, and then you decide if you want to spend them. $19, $29, $39, whatever. All right, here's some examples for those who may never have seen these screens. We're just going to fly through these. This is what Facebook looks when it comes to your ad manager campaign. This is where you work into the filterings of, I want this age, this income, this location, these things about them, and that defines the audiences that you're targeting. This is where this goes through. LinkedIn, very powerful tool for B2B and identifying people within marketing. And not to be embarrassing, does anybody still do blitzes or anything? Hopefully not. Good, because think about this. On Facebook and places like that, people that work for the company usually follow the company, and that's a filterable content. So you take your top 10 employers in your market, as an example, target them individually, and tell them whatever it is you want to offer. This doesn't replace your L&R with them or anything. This just says, I want to talk to your employees. I want to offer them something because I know there's a lot of them in my market. Or they have family coming to market, or whatever it is, and you want to dialogue one-on-one with them. You can just define them and then put an ad in front of them. Sorry. This is what Twitter looks like. I'll tell you something I recently, and maybe there's an expansion on this conversation or not. I was doing a campaign for HSMAI in the European Union. I hit all their marketing globally. And I was refining some of my ads. I was getting good engagement. Now, Twitter is a fire hose. You jump in it only at the time that you need that kind of exposure. You do it very frequently. Because you have 7 seconds and they're gone. 7 seconds and gone. So you got to really just, if you want to stand in front of somebody, this is I have a rate and an offer. I have a rate and an offer. And you just hammer it out. But you can target incredibly detailed, just like other platforms. I found using music helps. And I don't mean me listening to it while I do it. I mean genre. Country versus rock. Then I got 3 to 4 times the conversion value when I started defining music preferences. Same audiences, music preferences. Then when I started splitting it down to artists, it doubled on top of that. We relate to our music genres and artists. And I'm like, makes sense, but wow, how to put the sharper point to the pencil, and I'm still working on it. But cool stuff. I mean, I'm still working with it. Don't know where it's going to go, but it seems to have amplified what I was doing at the time. So just thought I'd share. Also to share, to make a point about trackability, there are 72 trackers on your website. I know you don't get all the data because it has different layers of who's getting that data for what reason. The corporate relationships, the ownership relationships, all of that's there. But it's there. That's just a little plugin that tells you who's tracking the site. These are some tools that I refer to in the links, and I took 5 more minutes. So good. All right. Albatross. This is a cool plugin for those in the independent hotels. Sorry for brands. This you can plug in, and it'll tell you the companies that touch your website. Then it'll stat out all the information about it, and it'll show all the emails and the contact information based on their titles, and you can just go grab it. So you can go over and say, oh, for business, people that are hitting for group business and so forth, if a company looked at your site for whatever reason, you can isolate this out to the pages that they may be looking at, because there's a trackability of what pages they went to. You see what the company is, their information, and then you can go over and isolate out the context that you want from those particular things. There's 4 more tools on that list that do the same thing. AirDNA, I heard that some people didn't hear about this, so I thought I'd throw it in. Are you familiar with AirDNA? Crazy data. I take airline lift data and create correlations. And airlines got it right. They own the supply and the demand. And so you pull the I use Google Data Studio. I used Watson for a little while, Tableau for a little while. I pull in this data from the airlifts and correlate it when they change rates or add aircraft, because they're not going to drop a $20 million aircraft in if they don't fill the damn thing. And I correlate their rate variations and their inventory variations, not just to their hubs, but from their hubs and what hubs they feed. And I correlate that to my rate strategies. Crazy insight. I do that mostly for clients in New York. AirDNA take the same thing. You can kill AirDNA's market strategy any day of the week you want, because it has lead time definition. As long as you're offering inventory compatibility at that time at the rate that it's compared against, you beat them, because you offer something they can't offer. No penalty, no fee, no collaboration with host as of yet. Easy and convenient. But if you offer your strategy correctly at the time that they're most opportunistic because of their lead time, which is variable according to the time of year, AirDNA tells you that data. You pattern your strategy of marketing around it, you stifle it. You don't have to compete with them, because the danger of them is elastic demand, right? They can fulfill inventory at will when they need it, because it rises as needed and diminishes when it doesn't. So you fight that by making sure that your inventory shows best with the convenience factor and cost factor that precludes their value proposition. Social Insider, I actually have that as a live version. You plug in your competitors, literally it will tell you what their best post is, what their growth is, what their patterns of postings are, what their usabilities were, what their engagements are. don't reinvent the wheel. Borrow what's best, customize it to you, augment the weakness of your competitor, amplify it. Smart people. Some fun tools. Google is not the 800-pound gorilla in the room. It is the monster that eats the 800-pound gorilla. It is what everyone fears. Did you know, I mean you did, that there is a ranking system in mobile for your hotel as to the value proposition of your location? And you can't control it because it's tailored to the individual that's looking. Crazy. Because it will show you what I'm interested in, based on what Google knows about me, in relationship to the location of that hotel. Lauren, you don't want this hotel. It's way away from the liquor store. Okay. Google Trips, great tool, been out for a couple of years, goes offline, helps you engage when you're traveling. Anybody that's traveled abroad doesn't have the Wi-Fi immediately, you feel like a lost child. Like, you're walking through the airport, it's like, I can't connect to anything. I have no idea what I'm doing. I didn't realize I relied on my phone so much. All right, these are other links. Again, smart bidding ads, we talk about AI. Smart bidding ads, AI is used. Last time Google announced what they're using for their AI was 26%, and that was 2.5 years ago. It's estimated to be in the high 40s for general search usage, and in the high 70s for individualized local searching, which just means artificial intelligence, which makes it harder for us to optimize, because it's not optimized based on metrics that we can define, it's based on engagements that it interprets with its AI. Google Data Studio, highly recommended, totally free, amazing report platform. Google Trends, if you haven't used it, you can trend anything, and I have an example of that if we rush to it fast enough. You're fighting a machine you can't win against. This is how fast this stuff works for them. Ads, postings, all that stuff. Milliseconds. With variables that we can't even calculate, even if we took the time to put it on paper. Facebook has their own version, which I used quite much when I was in Hawaii. I didn't realize so many of my friends had visited. And when I'm walking around, I'm like, wait a minute, Tim was there? And I'm like, I must go, because I like Tim. Tim's a friend. He like that restaurant? I must like that restaurant. Much stronger than the consumer sentiment of an anonymous group of people. You can build skills for your hotel. Hilton has, of course, been working towards that. Hilton has their own, which I think is brilliant. They use your own technology. Do not waste money putting technology into rooms that you constantly update and maintain. Use your own technology. You can build your own skills. I have a client that's in Vancouver. I literally built a skill set for concierge. Go to here and go over and say, Sensitive Suites, I'm hungry. What kind of food would you like? We built the whole logic structure. Makes it nice and fun. They can talk, figure out that there's an amazing Korean restaurant that's around the corner, and say, I need directions. Okay, and it'll pop it over to Google and put it in the maps for you. Some it's useful, some it's not, but it allows for a level of consumer engagement with the concierge that if your concierge is busy, they don't want to stand in line, may not know what the questions, they're not down at the lobby, this gives them another layer of engagement. This is an example of using old data for new data. We had a high-end resort that was losing demand over a period of time, so we took all the old data of where they received business from via their zip code. And we created on a free platform from Google called Google Fusion, this heat map. It was interactive, you could zoom down to a zip code, this is static. But this was a heat map of where they got all their business from. We then said, okay, it's an affluent resort, so income is a condition of people coming. So we looked for all the zip codes that had an income level that we considered usable, okay, which was correlated to the data anyway, and then we put it into the spectrum of how much revenue those zip codes generated for us. Simple math on your data. Created a quadrant system. Axis being total revenue generated, other axis being revenue income of the zip code. Everybody in the lower right quadrant obviously had the income propensity. They weren't generating as much revenue for us. So we did an old snail mail. Don't forget, it's just something nice in the mail. People like getting stuff in the mail sometimes still. We just sent snail mail, increase of 30% in 30 days. Just because we brought back front of mind what our product was to the people that already knew that we had the product. This is the cool part I was talking about, and this is part I'll finish off on this one. This is where I said I took the data of the data entry fields that were to your website and the geolocation of the people that were looking for those dates, the date they were looking for them, and it created a heat map. The larger the bubble, the more the demand. But it also gave a number of how many dates prior to the dates that they were looking for that they were looking at them. Once we knew lead time and source of market, we knew where we could target our marketing. We took it to revenue management as to what was the race resistance for that particular market. Philadelphia, they're at this rate, Boston's at this rate, and we're trying to get this rate, so Boston seems to be having a better propensity for being closer, so we're going to target Boston during the window that they're most interested in. We then stacked those markets according to how much revenue they gave us, length of stay, and also the channels that created that revenue for us historically. We also know the conversions of those channels. So we could then decide how we wanted to reach out to that market to offer what we wanted to offer on what channel, and we also knew the cost that we were on that channel. So we knew cost of acquisition, channel of opportunity, rate that was available for them, marketing was supposed to go to. We could, as marketers, actually forecast better than revenue management what our result would be doing those campaigns. So we could literally create a budget that met and matched the forecast goals, which is powerful when you're sitting down with ownership, because if they say, I need this much revenue from you, okay, well, you break down the channel's contribution. All of them are different. How much is PPC? How much is your email campaigns? What is the percentage contribution by channel? You know what the conversion value is. And because you know the percentage that it contributes, you know how much revenue that part is supposed to generate. It changes by month. This is a real simple Excel sheet, sorry. By month, by the contribution. So you literally can say, okay, so if I'm supposed to contribute 20%, 15% direct channel towards the overall, then my net revenue is X. Take out group. Group is a different marketing strategy. Okay? This is for transient, but group is the same, just you do the same thing, but there's a difference. Say I have to contribute 20%, this is my total net revenue I have to contribute. 70% is PPC, 20% is this, third is OTA, whatever it is. All these segments, so each of these segments means I have to generate that much in the green revenue, and at my current cost factor, conversion factor, 5 to 1, 7 to 1, 8 to 1, whatever you're running out of that channel, so much I have to spend. Well, I can't give you that. Well, I can't give you the revenue. I mean, obviously, I would like to improve my conversion. Obviously, I'd like to improve the channel contribution. But in our current number structure, this is the monies I need to generate the revenues you want at the time that you want it. It creates a much more concise, precise conversation about the true budgeting capabilities that you have. This is the problem you have. This is 2011's software and service profile as offered by marketing. This is 2017's Tech 5000. I say 17 because they do now it's only more Tech 5000. It's just the names have changed to protect the innocent, but it's the same thing, just in clutter. You're faced with a white noise of constant berating of these people. These people bug the heck out of you. They're constantly coming to you with what I can do different, how I can do it, and so forth. It's filtering what the usabilities are, which go back to the whole process we talked about. KPI, what are you trying to get from it? Break it down to what they need to do to attain that. Who's the authority people that are there, the decision makers to it, and start that process back here and bring it to the point that you're making the revenue for. These are all the steps, and I'm sorry I'm rushing through because I think I am now out of time. But these are the tools. This is the methodology. It's in the slide deck. Here's some resources for you. Cody has a great blog, especially about metasearch. We didn't get to Hotel, their new platform, Hotel Center, Ad Center. These are things, GDPR, ADR compliance, metasearch, influencers we didn't get to talk much about. CRM workflow, don't want to miss someone real quick. Just don't send emails, send workflows. Workflows are where you send an email, did they open it or not open it? If they opened it, did they book or not book? You create this workflow of logic. If they didn't open it, resend it after 4 days, different subject lines, same content. If they opened it then, did they book or not book? If they didn't open it, 5 days later, send them another email, different subject line. Did they open it, not open it? Categorize all the data as you're doing that. Platforms now allow you to do that. Brand allows you to do that. In also with that comes the dynamic data. Pre-arrivals now come in with, hey, while you're staying, these events are going on. And that data is inserted into the arrival letter so that they know that there's a concert or something of particular interest, and you can customize that. The other is, if you're fighting against OTAs, you want to convert that data, do a different pre-arrival letter for your OTAs, because you have promo codes and codes that you give to OTAs, have different pre-arrival letters for them, soliciting that the email get changed. You know those fake emails that get sent through the booking engines and so forth? Simply send a different pre-arrival. This is really looking forward to coming to you, blah, 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 so forth and so on. We'd like to send you a Starbucks card in our Starbucks office. We're going to do this, whatever the incentive is, but we need your direct email, not, and literally show them the gibberish email. If you put your direct email, we'll send you the card or the copy of your folio or whatever it is. You'd be surprised the percentage capture you get from that and how much you convert an OTA guest into a direct CRM data, which ultimately is your own sandbox that you have. GDPR, ADR, metasearch. If you don't know these terms, you need to learn them from metasearch. It's a powerful tool. Facebook dynamic ads for travel. I'm hoping that you're already using them. I had the pleasure of helping develop them. They're crazy stuff. I found out that dynamic rates are near as effective as realistic rates that are static. It's a weird thing. We thought that dynamic rates would be much more engaging. They tend to be less engaging, but static real ads, because the ads I talk about are the static ads that are normal. It's like rates starting from 109, and when you click it, there's not a 109 rate anywhere. It's just a, excuse the expression, an irritant rate. Dynamic ads were supposed to bring real data in real time from your rate structure and all the other elements that are customizable. Those other elements are the real power play to that. because you can customize what it is in the ad tailored to the person's direct interest and based on their destination. And that's powerful for converting tools. Influencers, very powerful. This was the flow example that I had for it. These are predictions we don't have time to talk to, and I have a whole mess of other slides I didn't get to show you, or tabs. But I do want to make sure I don't miss any opportunity for anybody to have questions on any of this. Is there something I just kind of shotgunned you at the end? I'm sorry. Yeah. They're like, wait a minute, can you go back to that? Or is there something else? Or do you think, like, okay, enough, we had it, we're good. Yes, ma'am.
Where do you see attribution going?
My favorite attribution is yet to be built.
Sorry?
My favorite attribution is yet to be built, which is the time decay frequency combination. You can do one or the other, but they haven't built one together for you yet. Obviously, first class, last click are ridiculous. So my closest that's consistently used right now is time decay. I think also too, and this goes back to, I think, which will be addressed stronger towards the later part of the day, there are different methodologies of attribution based on trigger points, not on just practical points. What you do in reaction is just as important as how it got to you. And influencing what gets sent, how it gets sent, when it gets sent, and to who it is sent is just as powerful as what they did with it when they got it. Boy, does that sound really complicated. Sorry. But there's two components to that process, and I know I apologize, I was going to tell you more about attribution, got crunched at the end. But attribution is a key element to this process. Without it, don't do anything you can't track. Don't track anything that's not worth it. No, we can figure that out, so we track it first, but the idea of it is that attribution, you have to assign value according to what you think is the trigger point that created Zmod. I don't know, maybe you're familiar with Zmod? Zero moment transition, yeah. I wasn't at one point, I'm like, what's Zmod? Basically, it's Google's interpretation of the moment of transition, where they see what they see for when they want to make the decision of choice and make that choice. And it's hard, it's elusive. That's why you always have a constant action button when people are engaged. You always have that opportunity for them to react to what you're giving them. But in the sense of attribution, being able to identify that Zmod in a time decay, on a frequency pattern, how often did they see that? And not in the abusive way we do it, that once we start doing retargeting, we just hammer them 30 or 40 times to the point of oblivion. After 3 to 5 days, if they're not engaged after the frequency that you've assigned to those 3 to 5 days, stop. They're not going to be engaged. Do much like with the workflow. Retime that engagement and reinstitute the conversation.
So if I could add something to the attribution piece of things. So the challenge is, if you think about Google and Facebook, just those two biggest properties, they are not going to give each other credit. Right? We know that a user's going to Google and all its multiple properties. They go into Facebook, to social media, video, mobile content, etc. So when you think about attribution, what you really have to look at is saying, what is that particular device, right? So we're not violating PIR, staying GDPR compliant. What is that device which is tied to a user actually doing to get to that booking? So when you think about attribution is, if you think about how we all got here, so obviously we booked the Biltmore because we're coming to a conference. But there are plenty of people here that are within the hotel, and the question is, how did they get here? Not physically. What were the actions that led them to actually get to the booking? And that booking happened either online or it happened on a phone call. So the idea is, how far back attribution did that journey start? Did they start with a very broad and generic keyword that could be expensive? Did they then look over several days? Did they go to several different networks, consume social media? And ultimately, let's say a week later, they converted on the organic site, made a phone call, and booking was recognized. What's been broken in the industry is that it's all been last click, and they'll look at a CRM system saying, okay, well, the call came from John and Jane Smith, and I'm assigning it to Google, or to whatever that last name was. True attribution allows you to go back and say, what was the inception point? What was that trigger? And then follow that trigger every single, all the way down, to be able to say, and now that they booked, I understand how much it cost to acquire that actual customer. But more importantly, now you know what levers to pull. Because if you know that middle piece, now you can say, well, it looks like social media or any other strategy that I have in market display is not converting. Well, it's not made to convert immediately. It's made to push the person down funnel. So along the way of answering the attribution question is the fact that you need to be able to track the user from inception to that sale, to a phone call, then be able to take those learnings in real time and be able to optimize against them. Recognize it in revenue, and then circle that back around with the execution. It has to be a closed loop.
And I'll add one other quick point to that is that when Google stole our keyword tracking down other than the AdWords you have to pay for, they gave us an attribution stream. And some of the flaws of it, where people didn't know what to do with it. But if you look at the string, they rank it according to the highest conversion string and go descending from that point. As you do that, you look at what they engage with, and it's with the tracking that you now have that you can place on social, you can place on your ads, you can place on your organic content. As they go through the attribution string, you see what they engage with. For instance, if you had a page that had 20 issues of local events, and that was a part of an attribution string that people were clicking on Tulip Festival, they went to your page for Tulip Festival, it was one of the 20 things, and they went to your ad for Tulip Festival, and the social platform for Tulip Festival, you can bet that one of the 20 things was the Tulip Festival. To improve your conversion that it was already giving you is to take the Tulip Festival out, generate content specific to it, and put it back into your feed. So that then now, instead of going to your top 20 things, Tulip Festival being one of them, it actually, in your organic string, would now go to specifically the Tulip Festival based on your ad going to it, your social referring to it, and now improve the conversion, because rather than them having to hunt for what brought them there, you're defining what brought them there. So in the usage of attribution, it identifies those things as you go through the process of discovery. That's a better additional explanation. I left this up on the screen real quick. Bots are fun for independent hotels. This one in Unique is is also in the list of clicks that I had to. It allows you to create logic flows of bots to particular pages. So as if you have a wedding page, the bot talks about weddings. If you have a bot about meetings, it talks about meetings. If it has a bot about a special event or something, the bot can dialogue, which makes it kind of fun because a lot of times people don't want to read 15 paragraphs of content, even 3 paragraphs of content. We have limitations as to content now. It's 500 words and so forth, and what have you. So this helps in the process of engagement, and it minimizes the engagement to your staff in the sense that they have to run off and handle 15-minute conversations where it's better to quantify them. I put this into some clients that it handled a lot of their level 1 support. I need a copy of my folio, can I confirm my reservation, whatever, and it handles it and then redirects it to the proper department. So by the time it has to engage with the department, you're giving them a unique email and phone number that doesn't get abused because everybody wants to grab and just talk to somebody, and allows for the person that's on the other end on your team to address the issue directly and solve it fast because the bot didn't handle it. So that's just another example. So there's tons of stuff, Shelby, we got stuff. I'm sorry for running over, but it's notoriously what I do. The link to it, just to have it up there again for you all, is the short one on the bottom. The top one is where it goes to, but the one on the bottom is the easiest for you to copy. And that's the bit.ly. I'm going to shut my screen off so you get to turn yours on. And we'll go from there. So I thank you for your time, questions, patience, engagement, all that stuff. I'm sorry, I'll give you the link for it as well. But and if there's any other follow-up questions, I have the privilege of being able to hang with you for the rest of the day. So I'll be happy to, if there's anything that we ran over too fast or brought up a question you would like a little more clarity on, I'll be happy to take the time before it. But in the meanwhile, thank you very much for your time. I'm going to hit the recorder box. Thank you.